You know, buying olive oil in a supermarket is a shot in the dark. You don't know how long the oil's been sitting there. You don't know when it was bottled. You can't be absolutely sure that it's 100% olive oil, and you don't even know where the olives were actually grown. And here, unlike in Europe, inspectors are not pulling bottles off a shelf to determine if an extra virgin oil is actually extra virgin. So it's hard to know what you're getting. And many folks say that the best European oils are sold in Europe. The lesser quality oils are often shipped to the United States. And like coffee, there are hundreds of brands of olive oil, so it's hard to know what to buy and whether price and quality are always related. Is a $20 bottle that much better than an $8 bottle? So one answer to this problem is to have access to artisanal olive oil shipped directly from gold medal winning small farms right to your door at harvest time, when the oil's flavor and nutrients are at their peak. And that's the idea behind the Fresh Pressed Olive Oil Club. It's the brainchild of T.J. Robinson, the olive oil hunter. Robinson has solved the problem of year-round fresh-pressed oils. Italy presses olives during the fall, Spain harvests in January, February, Australia, Chile, and New Zealand during our spring and summer. By the way, these undiscovered olive growers really make great oils. So when we tasted them here at Milk Street, we found that the Arbequina was peppery, grassy with a nice mellow finish. The Finca Galvez was fruity, full-flavored, and buttery. The Santa Teccia is light with a nice pepper finish. Nobody wants to drink only one type of wine, so why not over the course of a year taste lots of different olive oils? As a special introduction to his club, TJ is willing to send our listeners a retail-size $39 bottle of one of the world's finest artisanal olive oils, fresh from the new harvest, for just $1 to help him cover shipping. Best of all, with TJ's Club, there's never a commitment to buy anything now or ever, and you can cancel your membership at any time. Try a bottle for just $1 and taste the difference yourself. Go to getfresh177.com. One more time, go to getfresh177.com and try a bottle for just $1. That's getfresh177.com. Hi, this is Christopher Kimball. Thanks for downloading this week's podcast. You can go to our website, milkstreetradio.com, for each week's recipe or wine recommendations, and also updates about our cooking school and live events at Milk Street. I hope that you enjoy this week's show. This is Milk Street Radio from PRX. I'm your host, Christopher Kimball. Today I'm speaking with John Carter Cash, author of the Cash and Carter Family Cookbook. The son of Johnny Cash and June Carter, he grew up surrounded by the top names in country music. He shares his memories of his parents and their music, why he loves cooking with Mountain Dew, and his recipe for Southern cornbread.
Real Southern cornbread is a completely different deal. There's no sugar in it. I like to make mine with a regular Southern recipe in an old iron skillet. But that was my father's favorite food. You know, buttermilk and crumbled cornbread in it, cold buttermilk.
Also on today's show, we have a recipe for French walnut tart, a poem from Adam Gopnik, and a tip for dried beans. But first, our very own Catherine Smart is here to report on her trip to Enoteca Maria in Staten Island. Catherine, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I can't say welcome to Milk Street because you're part of Milk Street. But we let you out, and you went to New York to Staten Island to an Italian restaurant called Enoteca Maria. Why did you go there, and what's unique about it?
Well, Chris, Enoteca Maria shouldn't work as a restaurant. It is this tiny restaurant on Staten Island that was dreamed up by an Italian-American guy who was feeling really nostalgic about the food he grew up with and had no restaurant experience. He was a career MTA employee, but this guy, Jody Scaravella, is kind of a magician. He couldn't find the kind of food that he grew up with in Brooklyn. So he decided to open this restaurant, and he wanted grandmothers to be the chefs.
I had this idea that there was a lot of Italian women out there that had all this knowledge that they could bring to the table. So I put an ad in the American OG, and it said "Cercasi casalinga per cucinare regional tipical," which basically means we're looking for housewives to cook their regional dishes.
So the concept is these are people, grandmothers, nanas, who have been around, know how to cook the food the way he remembered it from his childhood.
So that's how it started, but it's really entered a kind of second wave. Jody realized that this model of bringing grandmothers into the restaurant to share their culture and share their cuisine could be duplicated. And so he started seeking out women from all over the world.
About 3 years into the project, I noticed that everybody was here celebrating these Italian women. So it just made sense that we should celebrate every culture.
So when I went to visit, there were the Italian grandmothers, the nonas, but there was also nonas from Sri Lanka, from Poland, from Greece. And so every night, there's 2 kitchens, and there will be an Italian grandmother who's cooking, and there's also a nona from somewhere else in the world.
But these grandmothers aren't flying from Sri Lanka. They live in Staten Island or Brooklyn. I mean, they're locals,
yes,
right?
These are immigrant locals.
Good, just to clear that up. And secondly, how long would they be in a rotations, or is it just a one-off?
They tend to stick around. So he usually has them cook once per month because it's a long shift. I mean, these women are older and they're working 14, 16-hour days. So it's usually once a month. And some of them have been cooking there for years.
So you obviously went to the restaurant and you talked to some of the people, some of the grandmothers. So who are 1 or 2 of the grandmothers you talked to? What are their stories?
So one of the women I was able to talk to was Plutmista, who's from Krios, Greece. And what was really special is her daughter was there too. And her daughter's the one that actually introduced her to the restaurant. So after Plutmista's husband passed away, he'd been sick for many years. She'd been taking care of him. She kind of had this void in her life. And so her daughter had heard about the Enoteca. Her daughter's name is Maria. And she contacted Jody and sort of plotted to just bring Plutmista in for her birthday dinner and not tell her this was all a setup to get her to actually cook in the restaurant.
So I didn't really tell my mother about the intent. I just said to her on her birthday, which was September 4th, I said, would you like to come to this restaurant that has grandmothers cooking? And we came and we met Jody and his wife, and Nonna Maria was here, and Nonna Adelina, and they were cooking. And so my mother just gravitated towards them while they were in the galley kitchen. And I just saw them, they connected without even speaking, fluent English, but somehow they connected through their love for food, their traditions and things like that. So then my mother, I saw her, she was definitely looked like interested. And so Joni took us to the table with his wife, and he said to my mother, just keep it simple, make a menu, and just what do you like to cook?
And now she cooks there regularly. And she makes all kinds of delicious food. She makes moussaka and baklava. But what was incredible is she pulled out this little notebook, maybe 6 inches long. It was in a plastic bag, and it was her grandmother's recipes. And so she's cooking from, recipes that have been passed down for generations.
So were there other nonas you met when you were there?
Yes. So Nona Dolly is from Sri Lanka. And this is a very different story than Plutmista, who was brought there by her daughter. Dolly was enterprising, saw that this restaurant existed, and she showed up basically asking for a job.
I moved to Staten Island. I had friends here. So I moved here. And about 2 years ago, I came here, I spoke to Joe, and he gave me the job right away.
So she makes these things called hoppers.
The hopper is made out of rice flour. You put rice flour, you put a little yeast, and then you put a little sugar into it, and you mix it with water and let it rise. Once it rises up for about 4 or 5 hours, you have to let it be somewhere in the heat. And then what you do is you put the coconut milk, so then that rises the thing well. And there's a special pan for that, the hopper pan.
As you can imagine, producing these crepes is a little bit of a different situation than making, say, a moussaka or a lasagna you can make ahead of time. So she brings in her own special pan and sometimes a little burner and sets up and fires off crepes to order.
And when they're served, how are they served?
So there's different ways to serve them, but she likes to serve them with curries, and they're almost used as a utensil to scoop the food into your mouth.
You can't use a fork and knife for that. Some, when they come here, they call me and they ask me, how do we eat this? So I say, you break it, dip it in the curry and eat. That's how you eat it.
So this place started with Italian food, of course, and you chatted with one of the grandmothers, Maria. And so what does she cook? Did she have specialties? What was she like?
She was wonderful, and she told me many times that her husband was very particular.
Particular. He like food Italia. He like spaghetti, meatball, they like lasagna a little bit, not too much. My husband was particular for it.
And it sounded kind of like he appreciated her food, but here she gets to stretch her legs a little bit and make some of her specialties that maybe she didn't make at home all the time. So she is famous for her lasagna. That is her favorite thing. She says she also makes a really good cavatelli, gnocchi, But it was really funny to hear her talk about the lasagna because I kept prying her for details as a home cook. Like, tell me your secrets. What am I doing wrong? How can I make it better? And she made it sound so simple.
Make a meatball, ricotta, cheese, and gravy. And fill it up and put it in the oven. Very easy. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, it's good. You have a beautiful dish.
So after service, did they have a drink and a cigarette? They hang out like everybody else does in the restaurant world.
Well, essentially, and it's so funny because they're sort of mini celebrities, and it's such a validating experience for these women. You know, they a lot of times have done this work, hard work, good work, but hard work their whole lives without a whole lot of fanfare. And so they get standing ovations. I think I mentioned some newspapers and television stations have talked to them, but all of them said that at the end of the night, that's their favorite part, is when they get to come out and chat with people and hear how much they love their food.
The people that come over here, they say, thank you, you did a good job. You make a picture with me. Oh, yeah.
In Enoteca Maria, all the grandmother stars. It's incredible. It's magic.
It's always the favorite part when the work's over and you get to bask in the glory. Catherine, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
That was Milk Street's Catherine Smart. Milk Street Radio is available anytime, anywhere as a podcast. Subscribe and you'll get every episode downloaded right to your phone each week. We post new episodes every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Now it's time to tackle your culinary questions with my co-host, Sarah Moulton. Sarah is, of course, the star of Sarah's Weeknight Meals on public television, also author of the book Home Cooking 101. Sarah, how are you?
I'm great, Chris, and I think it's time to get to the phones.
Open up the lines. Let's go. Welcome to Milk Street. Who's calling?
This is Karen.
Hi, Karen. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Houston, Texas.
How can we help you?
Well, I'm calling because I was interested in knowing what kind of vegetable I could serve with your Spanish pork stew from a skillet recipe.
Can you describe what the dish
Yeah,
is?
I found that recipe in Madrid a year ago. I was cooking with a chef there. It was interesting because he took fresh pork and he had chorizo, the Spanish chorizo, which is cured, a lot of smoked paprika, some herbs, etc. He essentially made a stew in a skillet in about half an hour. And I thought that was interesting because you cook the pork so quickly. That was a dish that was really a tapas dish. So it would be served in a small plate in a bar or whatever restaurant. And they wouldn't serve it with anything. I probably wouldn't serve vegetables with it. I would serve something simple like rice. Or you might do a Italian rice or risotto of some kind might work too.
Were there
something simple.
Tomatoes in the sauce?
Yeah, a little tomato reduction in the sauce, yeah.
So if this is going to be an entree, I think I'd want a vegetable. I might serve it like with sautéed spinach or broccoli rabe or something. Certainly on starch, because it sounds like it was very saucy.
Well, you know what I would do? Here's what I would do. I would just serve it with a bottle of wine, and then I would have a beautiful salad. A great
good.
salad.
I thought you were going to say the wine was your fruit.
My vegetable?
Yeah.
No, I would just serve it with a great salad.
Salad makes sense.
Yeah, and just keep it really simple.
I can get on board with that one.
Look, we found middle ground.
Yeah, we did.
There's hope. Anyway, it's a very quick recipe, and it tastes like it's been cooked for hours because a lot of the things in it, he also used some Serrano ham, are pre-smoked or cured.
So
like
they
the
got a lot of
chorizo and the
flavor.
ham.
Yeah.
The only thing that was raw was the pork. I think in this case we ended up with a tenderloin because it cooks very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But and the smoked paprika, the pimentons, also adds flavor. So it's one of my favorite recipes in Milk Street. So yeah, just a salad or something simple like rice, and I think you'd be good.
Sautéed spinach.
Okay.
Did you say something? Okay. Karen, hopefully that's helpful.
Yes, it is. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks for calling.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Milk Street. Who's calling?
This is Peter.
Hi, Peter. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, nice
Wow.
place.
So I'm calling about, I've always enjoyed playing with different food types. I've fermented food, cured food, made sausage, cured and dried and smoked, and I made cheese. Then my son went away to college, and my wife just went, and so all of a sudden I was doing all this for one person. Everything's going fine. I've got a dehydrator and a vacuum sealer, and I can make individual portions, except for bread. If I go buy a loaf of bread It's too much for me to eat before it goes bad. So I've heard that